Your mic.
Greetings and good evening. Let's try this once again. Greetings and good evening. Welcome to the Roundtable. Today is Tuesday, October the 24th, 2023. I'm Drew, and welcome to what is going to be another fire episode of engaging dialogue and the behind the curtain look as to why we can classify this as any given Sunday type of weekend where anything that could have happened if you were a NFL prognosticator, anything did happen if you were an NFL prognosticator. The college football season is definitely heating up. The playoff picture is starting to come into focus. Those top tier teams are starting to rise to the top. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We're heading into that home field advantage stretch of everyone's season where the crowd actually plays a part in whether or not your home team walks out with a dub or with an L, because the big games are coming. And I cannot wait to discuss all of this with my main man, Brother Griff. How are we doing this evening, sir?
Hey man, I'm doing pretty good, man. Especially, I wasn't bamboozled or hoodwinked like many people was this weekend. Because
I think you got lucky, that's all.
But so for me, man, all in all, was a great weekend. My Cowboys didn't play, so I was able to not have to take my blood pressure medicine for that. And so, man, I've been looking forward to this, man, because the way this weekend turned out this weekend, man, we got a lot to talk about.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And let's get into it. Before we get into it, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you and welcome to the entire Roundtable family that decided to join us tonight. Thank you for dedicating the next 59 minutes and 59 seconds of your time to engaging with us, sharing your commentary, your feedback on what we are providing as we analyze and recap each one of these big games over this past football weekend, both on the NFL side and the NCAA side. So the weekend that was in the NFL, the shockers of all shockers, let's start off with Monday Night Football. Oh, before we do that, we have to go over the weekend that was in my predictions, where I, with my whole chest out on Friday night, said that since my Saints lost on Thursday night, I could predict my games with a clear head because there was no emotion attached to it. Well, I put on my thinking cap and I went out on a limb and made 7 strong predictions. And out of those 7 strong predictions, I got 2 right. So, Troy, if you're on tonight, bro, this is the one and only time that I think you out-predicted me in anything. So, congratulations to you. Congratulations to Griff. I see that the records have kind of gotten a little tighter. I will go ahead and possibly take another leap of faith in this upcoming weekend to see what you got, Griff. So before we jump into the recaps, I'm going to let you brag a little bit. Good pick, man.
No need to brag, man. No need to brag, man. I appreciate you, but I'm just a faithful servant here to provide a product to the people, and hopefully they listened to me and was able to capture off of my picks.
I hear you. So congratulations on that. And I already see Troy going in the comments early about his Raiders. He's a little bit perturbed. We're going to talk about those Raiders and why I shall never pick them again later on in the show. But let's start off with the shocker that was last night in Monday Night Football. The San Francisco 49ers, who was supposed to be one of the best teams in the National Football League, traveled up to Minnesota to take our favorite quarterback, Kirk Cousins, on. And we all believed and even mentioned on Friday night show that Minnesota is capable of putting up big numbers, but they're also capable of not putting up any numbers. Going up against a San Francisco 49er team that we both believe is still one of the top tier teams in the NFL, thought that the defense was going to be hungry because of what happened the previous week against the Cleveland Browns. Well, guess what? Kirk Cousins decided to be Kirk Cousins on Monday Night Football last night and showed us why he is still capable of taking any team to the Super Bowl given the right circumstance. What say you about those 49ers, man? They don't look so big and bad right now. What's really going on up there in the Bay Area?
Yeah, man. Kirk Cousins went through them jokers like a hot knife through butter, man. I mean, it's amazing what happens when you give him time. I mean, yes, Justin Jefferson wasn't playing, and he had, got a rookie over there, Addison and Osborne. But, man, he was able. Hawkinson was one that stood up and the tight end, because everybody kept on talking about where's he at. They didn't give him this money, and he ain't showed up. Well, he played an outstanding game last night. Every time Kirk Cousins needed him, he was there. And then Addison just – and they was able to run the ball. They weren't dominant on the run, but they was able to get yards when they needed to get yards, man. And that's what I'm a firm believer. If you can get just a hint of a running game, don't give up on the running game, you can make it happen. They was able to execute on third down. That was the biggest difference in that game. Them jokers was able to, extend drives.
You are absolutely correct. And if I could be so bold to focus on the Minnesota offense, you mentioned in your opening commentary that Kirk Cousins went through that San Francisco defense like a knife cutting through hot cake. I was surprised as to the ease that Kirk Cousins had. The time, yes, anytime that you have time in the pocket, you can be effective as a quarterback. But when you have a defense from 1 through 11 who is supposed to be top tier, top 2, possibly top 1, depending on the health and the time of the year, you don't care how much time is really given, because you can trust your front 4, your front 5 to eventually collapse that pocket. This exposed the 49ers, back 4, back 5. Not so much the defense as a collective, but the ease that Kirk Cousins had. The ease without his number one weapon, without possibly the best receiver in the National Football League at his disposal last night, still went through that big defense like hotcakes. Right? I understand establishing the run game does provide you that level of comfort and that level of security that's where you have to make the defense think. But even in passing situations, San Francisco knew Kirk Cousins was going to drop back. San Francisco knew that the Minnesota Vikings were going to pass, and they still could not stop it. That says more about the 49ers and the drop that they've had in the past couple of weeks. Not because of both of them resulting in a loss, but how the defense has regressed. The offense is the offense, and it is going to be back where it was once you get all of those weapons back, once Debo is back on the field, Trent Williams is back protecting Purdy. Purdy threw a couple of bad passes last night. We understand that. But again, he is still a first-year starting quarterback in the National Football League, regardless of how effective he has been thus far. Yeah. The concern should be on the opposite side of the ball. And why is my defense no longer, even though we're heading into the middle of the season, as effective as it was at the beginning of the season? Injuries aren't hitting us that bad. That's what I would be concerned about if I was Shanahan.
Not on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, Purdy threw 2 interceptions last night, but Purdy still look efficient to me. He still was dishing that ball around, man. But I mean, Minnesota seen something in the tape, and they just ate Ward up. That's where they lived at. They stayed over there on Ward's side, and they ate him up all night. They're gonna have to figure something out on that defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and you're absolutely right. Even with and looking at, we're gonna try to adhere to time tonight, so I'm gonna reserve those comments that I had, and we're gonna move on. Thank you for that whistle there, Brother Dolan. Moving on to the next big game that was somewhat of a shocker, and the other side on the other coast,
Mhm.
The Philadelphia Eagles welcomed the high-charging 305 and that high-powered offense with all of that speed on the outside, all of that speed on the inside, all of that agility coming from the quarterback position, and a very tenacious defense that has been effective, that Griff pointed out on Friday night show thus far this season. And I was of the belief that the Miami Dolphins had what it took to go up into Philly and not only beat a 5-1 Philadelphia team in their house, but do it in convincing fashion because of the effectiveness of their offense. I did not take into consideration that Philly's defense is starting to come into form, especially on the back four. And we're going to get into the specifics of the game and how Miami actually lost the game. But before we do that deep dive, what did Jalen Hurts do on Sunday to introduce or reintroduce himself to the NFL?
I mean, honestly, man, Jalen Hurts is the same person I've been knowing ever since he played at Alabama. And I know I told you I wasn't going to bring Alabama to this, but what I say is he's resilient. He don't listen to what everybody got to say. You know, people been counting this kid out his whole life. They told him he wasn't supposed to be a quarterback. He wasn't supposed to. Told him that at Alabama, at Oklahoma. Ever since he been in the league, he wasn't going to take a. I went and looked at. I seen some footage this weekend, man. That every one of these commentators on every one of these shows ain't had nothing but bad stuff to say about Jalen. And all he do is he always show up when he need to show up. And that's what he did on Thursday. I mean, on not Thursday, but Sunday night. Not taking nothing away from what two of them did, but I told you on Friday night, if they was able to get pressure on Tua, which I did select the Eagles as well. You selected the Dolphins. I told you that, man, and that's what they was able to do. But like I told you, the turning point in that game is when Tyreek, one of them cheaters, he dropped that touchdown going in. When he dropped that touchdown and then they got that turnover, it was all down here from that.
Now you're absolutely correct. And unbeknownst to Tyreek, he decided to try to be beautiful, right? And try to catch the ball and run with it before he actually caught it. And that was a guaranteed touchdown. And that would have tied the score. You're right. They had come back from that early game lead that Philadelphia had built with their own turnovers. And it was a nip and tuck game. And it could be the prequel to you see something in the Super Bowl if both teams make it that far, which they most possibly could. But the Miami Dolphins did take a hit.
Yeah.
Right. Because that was a game that they needed to make a statement, not only to their division, but to the rest of the NFL. Do you believe that they are in danger of falling behind in their division because of the Bills somewhat collapsed, the Jets somewhat, I don't know, maybe they could be something resurgence with Zach Wilson? I don't think the division is in danger for the Dolphins as we head into this midseason stretch. This was obviously one of the best teams in the NFL going up against the Philadelphia Eagles at their place at night. And so you can't really fault the Dolphins for losing a game.
Yeah.
But you can kind of fault the Dolphins for losing the game because it was within their grasp.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't let those big games slip away in the regular season because those same big games in the regular season that you give away somehow come back to bite you in the playoffs.
They needed it. I think that would have been a statement for them, but I don't think it hurt them in the AFC at all. With the Bills losing this weekend as well, they good. One of the questions, since we still here with the Eagles, how do we? I don't know if you noticed that they GM up there just keep on picking up people left and right. They even was able to get Julio in the game, and then they went to the Titans again and took some more players from the Titans this week. Man, I think the Eagles is preparing for this postseason, and a lot of other teams is slipping like mine. But we'll leave that for next week since they ain't a part of the topic.
No, you're definitely right. They are stacking their chips. It is an all-in. season, because every great GM understands, regardless of the sport, you have a window when you have all of that talent collectively together. You have a 2 to 4, maybe 5 year window to really capture as many chips as you can. We've seen the Kansas City Chiefs do it, and the Eagles are trying to mimic that. So they understand that their number one competition this year is going to be on the left coast, the San Francisco 49ers, and they are getting 2 and 3 players deep to ensure that when that injury bug does hit, that we can just continue with this train and keep it moving. So, the Eagles are definitely preparing for a deep playoff push. And I believe that the Miami Dolphins are doing the same, because they have those track stars that can play in any condition. And when you have a gap, as it was mentioned by the commentators, that you need to have both Waddle and Cheetah on the field for them both to be effective, I don't believe that to be the case. I think that was just a talking point for Chris Collinsworth, and so because you have speed all over the field, and you don't need one on the other side to balance off the other. So I still look for McDaniel to come up with a plan for those Dolphins to continue chugging along, just like we are right now. The next big game. I mean, it was a lot of big games, man. A lot of big games this weekend. You had the NFC North leading Detroit Lions traveling all the way down to Bmore to take on the AFC North leading Baltimore Ravens. And Lamar, who is that guy, apparently y'all must have forgot. So he had to remind not only y'all, but me too, because I was foolish enough to not only dismiss Lamar, who is one of my favorite players and one of my someone who I always defend and tout his abilities. I went against him this weekend, so he slapped me in the face, not only by beating those NFC North Detroit Lions, but beating them to a pulp, like embarrassing them, like really displaying that y'all must have forgot I got a gun for an arm, right? So congratulations, Lamar. Let's keep it going. I'm going to turn it over to you so that you can brag about how you knew Detroit wasn't ready for the big stage yet.
I don't trust Jared Goff, man. Jared Goff is good as long as he don't have no pressure on him, man. The minute you put pressure on, I told you, man, he started seeing ghosts. And that's what he saw this weekend. He saw some ghosts this weekend, bro. He saw ghosts, man. They put that heat. They brought the pressure on Jared Goff. He is not that guy. He's not a Lamar. He's not one of those quarterbacks that's going to try to extend the play. He's not going to try to scramble. He's just going to throw the ball in the ground. It's a couple of times they could have easily called, but they did call intentional grounding on him. Because I'm telling you, he don't want to get hit, bro. I'm telling you. I just like what Lamar was doing as far as, because I've always been critical of him as far as his throwing ability. I know what he can do with his legs, but this weekend he made a believer out of me because he did way more with his arms than he did with his legs. And the defense just brought the heat. That's all I can say. Lamar threw for over 300 and some yards, and that daggone kid, Zay Flowers, is the truth. Zay Flowers is the truth.
I somewhat understand your critique of Lamar's quarterback history, because that has been the national narrative, right? The media has pushed this ever since before Lamar came into the National Football League, because they wanted him to enter the draft as a football player and not a quarterback, right? So basically telling him you're going to play receiver and be a gadget guy at some point. But Lamar has always believed in his own ability as a passer, not what he could do with his legs. Now, dare I say, had Lamar in his first 5 years in the National Football League had legitimate wide receivers on the Baltimore Ravens, he would have been a multiple MVP, because the offense would have been predicated on utilizing both run and pass. Now that the Baltimore Ravens have elevated their offensive play calling by actually entering the 21st century and not always being a run-heavy type team, and actually getting him receivers that have quality cut and release, cut and separate abilities, Lamar is reminding not only his Ravens fans, but the rest of the National Football League that I am that dude. Look what I did at the age of 19 and 20 at Louisville when I hoisted that Heisman Trophy up. Look what I did in my first full year as a starting quarterback, going 14-2 and hosting that MVP trophy up. Y'all must have forgot. Let me remind you, that's what he showed me on Sunday. Hopefully he and the Ravens can continue to get it or get this train moving. Let John Harbaugh move out of the way and let his offensive play caller create plays for Lamar to take advantage of those receivers for as long as they are healthy, because we all know they're not going to stay healthy, right? So as long as they remain healthy, the receivers, Lamar is going to be not only in the MVP conversation, but an MVP front runner. Let's get it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this though. I will say he had receivers. I wouldn't say he didn't have receivers when he first came in the league. I would say he had an offensive coordinator that didn't allow him to do certain things. Go check it out, man. The coordinator he got now, he's letting him toss that ball a little bit more. I'm just gonna be honest. And then circumstances also make you have to do certain things. When you lose most of your running backs, when you lose some of your running backs and stuff like that, and then you're forced to do some things that you don't normally do. And I mean, hell, he lost like three running backs all in the same season. So now you got to be forced to, some people got to step up. But I mean, he had Hollywood Brown. He had quite a few guys that could go get the ball, but they focused more on his legs and his throwing ability. And Todd Monken, the new offensive coordinator, is actually letting him, as they say, he letting him spit. He letting him throw that ball a little bit.
Yeah. You mentioned the Hollywood Browns and everything, and I got it. We're moving on. But that was when Hollywood Brown was healthy, and he was the only option other than Andrew. So let's be bold, right? Let's be bold and call it for what it is. Lamar has never had receivers at his disposal like he has now. He's always had Andrews, but that's it. Moving on to another game that had very, very, very big playoff implications for both teams because they are in the same division. Your Super Bowl defending champs, Kansas City Chiefs, along with Taylor and them, going up against the Los Angeles Chargers, who had the ability, who had the skill set, the talent to go into Kansas City and come out with a dub. Right, because they know Kansas City so well. They know the Chiefs ins and outs. They know all about the trick plays that, the brain who can come up with whatever in the moment and have Patrick Mahomes to just create it while he's in the huddle and execute it. You still believe, well, I still believe, that the Chargers had what it takes to go in and get a victory. And they showed that they are good enough to compete with Kansas City. But when I know, Taylor up in the stands know that I am going to throw the ball to number 87, whose name I will not mention.
I'll get it.
Right? And everybody yells, Kelsey is getting the ball. Kelsey is getting the ball, and you still don't stop it.
Bro,
what else is there to do, man?
I don't understand it, man. I don't know how. See, because it leads right back to Lamar. Lamar got Andrew. Mahomes got Kelsey. Everybody know Andrew getting the ball with the Ravens most of the time. Everybody know that. Everybody know for sure. Not only Taylor, but the referees. The little kid that's in the stand selling popcorn, everybody know Kelsey getting the ball. But Kelsey lit the Chargers up this weekend. And I guess this is our first firing of the night, because I know Miles is normally on here to tell us, and I don't think we fired no coach yet. But I mean, we already know how you feel about Staley as the coach for the Chargers. And I know your feelings ain't changed none since the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I would say fire Staley, but this is a game that they were not favored to win, even though that where they were going to be competitive. And I've been riding hard on the Kansas City Chiefs these first 6 games because of the officiating being slanted in their favor. But Miles did mention that McCole Hardman is back on the team after being released from the or traded from the Jets. And that may not be a big splash move for any other team, but him coming back, providing Patrick Mahomes an additional weapon is huge for that team, right? Because he doesn't have to get acclimated to anything. He basically went on a business trip to New York for a little while and then came back to the house. So that is going to make a huge difference for the Kansas City Chiefs.
The defense,
man, not only gives Patrick Mahomes his security blanket, Kelsey wherever and whenever, but when they do want to go beyond that 20 to 30-yard window with Kelsey, Hartman can do that.
Yeah. But the defense was honestly, I mean, we talking about Kelsey and all the Chargers offense, but the Chiefs defense showed up this weekend, bro. They put some serious pressure on Herbert. And it wasn't just Jones. I mean, they came up and they put that heat, man. And that was, for me, the deciding factor in that game. Because Herbert is Elkers is back, but he wasn't a factor in the game. Keelan Allen got his. I think he received over 100 yards or whatever. But that defense was putting that heat on Herbert. Herbert took some lumps this weekend.
Yeah, you're right. So enough about the Chiefs. They are back in my top 5, which I'll talk about later. And they actually earned their spot this week. So before we move on to the next game, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the entire RoundTable commentary audience that are, getting after it in the chat. Appreciate all of the commentary y'all are providing. We're going to take a break here in a few minutes to address a couple of your comments and or questions the first half of the show. And to point it out specifically, to ensure that we give you the feedback that you are looking for. So look forward to that here in about 5 minutes or so. This one was a head scratcher, man. I've been talking about defense, and I got the Cleveland Browns got the number 1 defense in the National Football League. But last time I checked, if I'm the number 1 defense, giving up 38 points is not part of the defensive game plan, and still get able to keep that title come Monday. I just gave up 38, but I'm still the number 1 defense. Why? Because my team scored 39. That is the only reason. When I actually played like trash and my number 1 player made number 1 plays in big time moments, that's the only reason we walked out of that stadium with a dub. If it wasn't for Myles Garrett making some huge plays, Cleveland would have took an L.
Hey, bro, the reason why they walked out of that stadium with a W is because them referees made some bad calls in this game. We can always say every game the referees make bad calls, but this was some game altering calls, man. I was like, man, you got to be freaking kidding me. They moved the ball down the field for the Browns on the last drive. I mean, that ball was thrown into the stands, bro. But let's talk about the penalty before that when they said illegal touching or some bull crap on Amari Cooper. The defender fell down. I'm like, man, y'all got to be kidding me, man.
Yeah.
This is one of the worst. Hey, if we was in the military, what I tell you before the show, we have a mandatory stand
down day.
We have a mandatory stand down, and we'll be retraining everybody. That's what they need to do right now in the NFL. Because
pull out your soldier's manual, pull it out, because we got some retraining to do, young. So
it's been happening way too often this season, bro.
Yeah, and it's blatant, and officials are humans. Got it. Officials make mistakes because they aren't in the best position at the time. These players are moving anywhere between 15 to 20 miles per hour at times, and it's a bang, bang play. Make the call, whatever you're going to make. Got it. But that's why we have review now. That's why you have videotape. Be mature enough and have enough integrity to say, hey, I made this call, but I'm not 100% certain that the call that I made is the accurate call. I would suggest doing a quick call up to New York so they can buzz up in the ear and tell us that, hey, that was not a good call. Or while we're standing here acting like we're talking to each other, or confirm that that was a legit call that referee made and we can move on. But to have these blatant penalties that are being called to help one team over another just to advance the game or to make the game a little bit more exciting or to give a team an opportunity to come back late in the game based on who that team is and where they are playing is absolutely ridiculous. And the National Football League should be ashamed of itself for putting up on a product that looks like straight trash because you have the officials who are not playing deciding the game. It's not the way it should be, ladies and gentlemen. So, Roger Goodell, fix it. You are the commish. That's what they say you get paid $40 million for. Do that for us, please. Thank you. Moving on to the next game that had officiating play a part in it. No, it didn't, because we actually had some defensive players making some defensive plays. I picked this game wrong, too. Moving on to the Steelers against the Rams, Dolan. The Steelers going up to the left coast, traveling to Los Angeles. This was another game that I said that the home team was going to take care of business because I believe that these two teams, like I said on Friday, are mirror images of each other. You don't know what you're going to get from either of them on a particular week. But look at the records. Pittsburgh is 4-2. They kind of share the lead in the AFC North. But do you believe what Mike Tomlin is putting in the stew over there in Pittsburgh to produce the results that they are producing? Because Pittsburgh ain't outscoring nobody until it's time to look at the final scoreboard, and then you realize they just outscored you. How do Pittsburgh keep winning, man? What's going on over there?
Well, I can't speak for the whole season, but I can speak again. Officiating. Now, I won't take nothing from TJ Watt. TJ got a pick six. I won't take nothing from it. But, man, go back to that 4th and 1 call where it was obvious.
You're right.
Stevie Wonder could see that Joker was short, bro. And I mean, and it just goes back to what you just said, man. And it don't help when you got guys like former officials like Dean Blandino and them on there telling you that, hey, this is what the call should be or whatever. In this day and age, we always talking about embrace modern technology and stuff like that. And, you know, you got to be able to reach back to that stuff to get these games right, man. That right there, again, hurting them Rams, bro. So, hey, that kid, Pika Nakua or whatever, that dude is the truth. Man, that dude made some catches this weekend and Cooper Kupp. But the Steelers got the official. I mean, I guess they got with the Chiefs and found out what it was that they needed to do to get the officials on their side. And that was, again, another game, another call that affected the game.
Yeah. I don't want to keep, yapping on about the officials, but, man, it has to be fixed because the big games are coming. We've had a couple of huge games, big early season games, simply because of the talent that's on the field. But the big late season games where records are going to matter, playoff positions are going to be at stake, and you're going to have an official or a group of officials making calls during any particular game that is really going to screw an entire team over. I'm talking from personal experience. Trust me when I tell you, the feeling does not feel good when your season comes to an abrupt end because of one call, a blatant call, a call that can be corrected in the moment simply because we have the ability to correct it.
Yep.
Enough about that. This was a big game for Pittsburgh, and I congratulate them on going up to Los Angeles and taking care of business. But again, their season only gets tougher as well. And then, let's wrap up our NFL portion of the show talking about the game that should have never been scheduled.
Hey, you said you was feeling the Cowboy slot with this one, man. Hey, how that pick go for you?
This was a huge mistake. For one reason and one reason only, we feel a sense of obligation to all members of the roundtable to make sure that every single one of their teams receive the appropriate amount of love and affection that every member on camera and off wants their team to receive. And we slid this game in for one reason and one reason only. You're daggone right, Troy. You said please don't, but guess what? I am. I'm getting ready to go in on your Raiders. Why on God's green earth would the Davis family put a product on the field against the Chicago Bears, a team that has won exactly one game in the past 400 days? 400 days. The Chicago Bears have won one professional game in 400. 400. I'm going to keep saying it until they went up against your Las Vegas Raiders. That is why we put this game on this weekend. So Drew, we can put the Raiders. No, let me finish.
They got 2 wins. They got 2 wins. You remember they beat
2 wins in 400 days.
Yeah, they beat Atlanta.
They beat Atlanta. That was a good plug. But no, we put this game in because we thought this was a sure lock victory for the Raiders because they have won their past 2 games, their previous 2 games, and were favored. And your best receiver, your best player, one of the top 3 receivers in the National Football League, went to the podium last week and said, "Throw me the ball. I'm getting paid $28 million. Throw me the ball. I want the ball." And y'all still couldn't do that and allowed yourselves to get blown out by the Chicago Bears. That's all I got to say. All right, Griff. If you want to continue to talk about it, we can. If not, we can definitely move on.
I just so Troy don't feel too bad, man. The Raiders played against a guy that won the equivalent to a Heisman Trophy in his conference. Yet I don't know what that conference is, but they say so you can't beat the Raiders up, man. They was playing against a guy that won a trophy, man. So yeah, and they ain't have no tape on him. So yeah.
Man, that is absolutely awesome.
We can leave it from there, man, because Troy didn't already counseled himself. If you look at the beginning of the comments when we first, all of them was Troy and all of them was Tim. He thought he was gonna get ahead of it, and we weren't gonna talk about his team because he battled, but it's all good. But
I guess we Troy was logging off. Troy, I thought you was gonna be a bold person tonight and just log off. But
he
no,
ain't logging off, man. He ain't
man.
logging
Let's we before we transition into the NCAA, and no, before I give my top 5 for the week, let's take a minute, Jordan. If we got any comments that you want to bring up that were at the beginning of the show or throughout the first 30 minutes that y'all want to talk about, let's do it.
So I think we addressed that one already.
Yeah, the 2 Titan editions this weekend for the Eagles. Got it. The Raiders think, yeah.
No, that's Troy. We don't want to talk about that.
So yeah, the film on Purdy is out, but I still don't think Purdy is gonna buckle under the pressure. You blitz him at your own peril because he is precise. He does have some precisions. I know he was a little off last night, but I don't think Purdy is gonna begin to decline.
So Jordan, bring up the question. I think Troy put that's an actual question. The question is, what is an uncatchable ball? And I think that's something that definitely need to be discussed or talk about right there. That's a question, man, because that happened in the Browns and the Colts game, which was again a turning point in that game. And an uncatchable ball is supposed to be one of those balls that, like, and I like the way Troy said it, only Jesus or somebody in the stands can catch the ball. And on that particular call, man, they threw that flag, which I said that, man, that referee looked like he had his hand already on the trigger, ready to throw it anyway. That ball was clearly overthrown. It was not catchable because ain't nobody on the league got that type of vertical. And basically, the answer to that question is what we would consider to be a common sense thing, whether or not a person has the ability to catch that ball, and that ball was uncatchable.
Yeah. And looking at the flow, the position of the player, whether or not he was in position to even leap to get the ball, you give him that 9 to 10 feet grace area in the air, but that's about it.
All right, man.
Talk about the no-look reverse from the Dolphins. I don't recall that play. I recall that play. Do I recall that play?
Yeah, I want to say that they got a score on that play. I mean, I still say it was a good game, man. I would still say the turning point in that game was that drop pass from
Tyree.
From Tyree, man. That would have tied the game up, and they were just going back and forth, man. But yeah, that changed the whole balance of the game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, we're at 8:40. Let's go ahead and move on, man. Let me give my top 5 real quick, okay. and then we'll bounce right into the NCAA for the remainder of tonight's show. All right, my top 5 after this weekend kind of fluctuated a little bit, and it kind of mimics, I would say, everyone else's top 5 based on this weekend's results. All right, starting at number 5, I couldn't decide between the two, but I'm going to go with 2 teams. It's my top 5. I'm going to make that decision. Can nobody overrule my decision because my decision is my decision.
It's your decision.
The Jacksonville Jaguars and the Dallas Cowboys are the 5th best team in the National Football League, simply because the Jacksonville Jaguars proven themselves over the past few weeks that they can string together good quality wins against teams that are at least competitive. And are now 5-2, top of their division. The Cowboys have the talent. They just had a week to get ready or recover and kind of lock in their offensive game plan for their midseason push. So I have them tied as number 5. Number 4, the Cleveland Browns, based off of yesterday's results, with a backup quarterback. They still hung in there and hung up 39 points on the Indianapolis Colts. So that's why I have them where I have them, because they are still 5-2 with a backup. Deshaun hasn't really played this entire season. So that defense is legit. Number 3, Lamar and the Baltimore Ravens. He's shown it. He blew out the Baltimore or the Detroit Lions this weekend to solidify that. And as long as those receivers stay healthy, look for Lamar to continue to shine. Number 2, the Kansas City Chiefs. They finally earned a victory this weekend for me by the plate on the offensive side, even though it was a tight game between them and the Chargers. And number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles taking care of business on Sunday night against another quality team, the Miami Dolphins, who are hovering at 6 or 7, along with the San Francisco 49ers with me this week. That's my top 5. You good with that, or you want to move on?
I like your top 5, man. And Hick, don't be. I appreciate you being on here, man, but don't be giving us the Google eyes when we talking about my Cowboys. I actually had your same. I had 1 through 3 as well. I got the Eagles number 1, Chiefs number 2, Ravens number 3. But what we differ at, I got the Jags as the number 4 team in the league, and I got the Cowboys as 5. Me personally, the Browns, even though. And it has nothing to do with, me being a Cowboy fan. The Browns, I see them trending down. I don't see them trending up. I see them trending down.
Really?
PJ Walker is not the guy for them. I'm just going to keep it real.
But you don't think Deshaun is going to come back and eventually?
Nope.
No?
Man, Deshaun is about to be out another 2 to 3 weeks. So, and trust and believe, he wasn't doing that great before he got hurt in the game. That's all I can tell you.
That is true. He is as frigid as the NBA tip-off tonight, right? NBA season kicks off tonight, so a shout-out to the NBA.
Ask Hicks right fast, because we getting ready to move to the NCAA. But it's the same thing with the Jets, man. Jets got a great defense, but great defenses get frustrated when the offense ain't producing. And it's good because we about to segue into the college football, and it happened to a team this weekend that should have won, but they had an awful offense.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, I meant to talk about this during the 49ers game, but what last night's victory did for the Minnesota Vikings was guarantee that Kirk Cousins is not going anywhere this year. He's going to be right there in Minnesota. So they still think they can salvage their season. Just hang out a couple of more weeks until Justin gets back, and then it's off to the races, and let's see if we can catch Detroit. All right, so moving on from the gridiron of Sunday afternoon to the excitement and just all day festivities and activities of Saturday, regardless of whether or not it's a 10 o'clock in the morning game, a 12 o'clock high noon game, or a 10 o'clock in the middle of the night game, depending on where you are in the country. College football is king. The big games that we had this weekend, the biggest one was the Nittany Lions of Penn State traveling to Columbus to take on the Buckeyes of Ohio State. We knew that this was going to be a very good game. We knew that this was going to be a hard-hitting game. We knew that this was going to be a defensive struggle between two Big Ten teams, two Big Ten schools and Big Ten teams that bring their defense and their lunch pail every single Saturday. Did you think that it was all in as it pertains to our one shot for the Nittany Lions to go into Columbus and come out with a dub, or do they still have a shot, outside chance, to make it to the college football playoffs this weekend? This was it for them.
No, they screwed themselves this weekend, bro. If they wanted the people, because they got exposed, they showed that they don't have an offense. Defense was great, but bro, I mean, look, man. Shucks, I could go out there on one of them elementary school flag football teams. I mean, they had no offense. When I say no offense, not one time did they ever even try to push the ball down the field or nothing. All they kept on trying to do was the little short passes and stuff like that, which a lot of their plays resemble Ohio State plays. So the defense was already prepared for that bull crap. And so the score don't reflect it, because the score make you think that, hey, Ohio State was out. Now, Penn State was in this game the whole game. Their offense just couldn't. Their offense couldn't produce.
Yeah, this was the mirror effect of the Notre Dame versus Ohio State game, where neither offense could actually create any longevity in their drives. Neither offense could actually impose their will against the defense. And it was the first one of 15 wins. If we are able to get to 15, right? Any points or any opportunity that you get, we're not playing the analytics. If we can get points, we are going to get points. So it shows that Ohio State has a defense that can compete, at least in the Big Ten. On the national stage, that's still yet to be determined, because they haven't really played anybody than what they see in their conference. Their biggest test will come against the Wolverines, because the Wolverines offense is an offense that not only can score, but they have the offensive mindset that we're not only going to score, but we're going to try to beat you up and shove it down your throat. And being their number one arch rival, quite possibly, I don't know, I don't believe this, but a lot of people say it, the biggest rivalry in college football, then Ohio State is going to have to bring their A game. I am still not confident of that number 3 ranking that they currently possess, even though that they are 7-0, because they haven't shown anything offensively, as you have already mentioned. They are skating by, literally 15-14, 14-12, 17-16. Is it going to eventually come back to bite them, and somebody going to hang a fitty burger on them here in the next couple of weeks? I'm just waiting for it to happen.
Yeah.
I won't be surprised.
Yeah.
Moving on, man, to the new king of the state of Florida, the Seminoles, and their supposed dominance that is not really dominance at all. And I kind of figured that Duke would be able to go down into Florida State, into Tallahassee, and be very competitive, even though that we all assumed, just as the end result showed, that Florida State was going to come out on top. Duke is not only a good team, but they may have exposed Florida State in a way to where you can be competitive and just wear them down, right? And I understand Florida State kind of extended it out at the back half of the game, but the first 2.5, 3 quarters, Duke was right there in it.
Yeah. I was not surprised, because Duke ain't a pushover, man. What, they came right out the gate and beat Clemson. They came right out, and I know Hick ain't no Clemson fan. He a Carolina fan, but still, we still look at Clemson as one of the standards, and for them to come out there and beat them and to beat NC State, they didn't play, and they gave Florida State a run for their money. But at the end of the day, you know what? Teams like Florida State, in order to win national championship, you're gonna have to have some close games like that. And that at the end of the game is that W that means the most. And right now, man, Florida State is the kings of the ACC.
Right. Yeah. And they have to win collectively. They aren't, too dominant on one side of the ball as compared to the other side of the ball. They have a very good balance. All right. So moving on. Do we have to talk about this?
Yeah, we always got to talk about it. We ain't if we gonna put the Raiders, if we gonna put the Raiders or on the screen, and then you gotta talk about Alabama, baby. No, only thing I'm gonna say about
Troy said next.
Only thing I'm gonna say about Alabama, man. Hey, was not pleasantly pleased with the first half of that game at all. I still. I seen Hicks say we trending up, and that's the thing about college football. Eventually, it always plays itself out. Mm-hmm. Alabama hold the key to its own destiny. The second half was definitely a tale of two daggone halves. But this was a special because the way the game came down to the end last year when we played Tennessee and Old Rocket Top, man, I was just glad to say Old Rocket Top was a flat top by the end of the game, bro. And for the first time in my life, I smoked a cigar. And it's the last time I'm ever going to smoke a cigar, man, because I'm still tasting that cigar from Saturday. I guess I wasn't built for that.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't know what that means between the Alabama and Tennessee game, but
yeah,
I guess it's the thing.
It's something that they do out there every year. They do it. Peyton Manning was out there smoking a cigar last year, but it's a tradition that dated back, man, to where whoever win that game, everybody smoke a cigar. And Alabama has, in historical form, has been the ones that's always smoking a cigar up until last year.
I got you. So, roll Tide road at least for one more week, right? All right, moving on, man. We both mentioned it on Friday night that this was going to be the last week that you would see of the University of Southern California Trojans. The Trojans are done. Caleb Williams is done. They are not going to make it to the Pac-12 championship game. They are not going to make it to the college playoffs. They are not going to have that national coverage anymore because Utah knocked them out, in my opinion. They still have another L left in them this season. They're going to make a bowl game, but they're not going to make it to the Rose Bowl. They're not going to be in that January 1st bowl, and they will not have that national stage. And Caleb Williams will be handing the Heisman Trophy off to the next Heisman Trophy winner because he's not going to repeat this year.
I agree. I definitely agree, man. But I told you on Friday, man, USC downfall is their defense, bro.
Yeah.
And the last 2 weeks, Utah brought the heat this week. We see the points up there, but Caleb Williams running for his life this weekend. And somebody need to figure this out, man. We need to bring all those Pac-12 games to the East Coast, man. This being up at 11, 12 o'clock at night, I ain't built for that no more, man.
Man, don't worry about it. This was a one-off. The Pac-12, one, is going away, but two, they've never been this good across the board historically ever. You've had a USC here and there. You've had an Oregon here and there. You've had a UCLA here and there. You've even had a University of Washington here and there having a very good year, but collectively, they've never had this type of season. And I haven't even talked about the Colorado Buffaloes and all of the hype train that comes along with them this year. So this will not happen again. You won't have to worry about going past your bedtime of 10 o'clock anymore. Moving on to the biggest game of the weekend that wasn't. I have to give all of the love to my LSU Tigers. They took care of business against a very tough, very tenacious, very focused
dead roll
West Point Cadets, Army Black Knights by taking care of business on homecoming weekend. Now, enough talking about the LSU Tigers. The Alabama Crimson Tide, both of them have an off weekend. The next time they get on the football field will be 2 weeks or 10 days. Make that 13 days from now. against each other in Tuscaloosa at Bryant-Denny Stadium on the first Saturday in November, which will decide the SEC West. Now, last 4 or 5 minutes of the show, I want to kind of tackle the college football playoffs and where we are right now based on the current top 25. Jordan, could you bring up the current top 25? Or Dolan, could you bring up the top 25 if we have that? And where these teams are sitting and kind of look at specific teams out of that top 10 or top 15 and give a thumbs up, thumbs down as to whether or not, regardless of whether or not this team has performed well thus far, does this team have a legitimate shot based on the remaining schedule that they have to make it to the college football playoffs? A lot of them have to play each other because they are in the same conference, same division within the same conference, or just by happenstance end up on each other's schedule this year. Let's start off with the number one, Georgia Bulldogs. Contender, pretender.
Hey, contender, man. I would say it depends on really they undefeated, and to beat the man, you got to beat the man. I see them in Atlanta playing against Alabama in the SEC championship and win, lose, but they got to win. Georgia got to win the SEC championship because if they don't win the way they've been playing this year, they're not going to get the love from the college football committee because they have not been dominant. But they definitely a contender.
Yeah, I agree. They are a contender. Their biggest game of the year is actually coming up here the same night we play each other against the University of Missouri, oddly enough, the Missouri Tigers, because Missouri is still undefeated in the SEC East. The Missouri Tigers are still 7-1 or 6-1, having only one loss to the mighty LSU Tigers. So this game for Georgia is important, not only for them to take care of business and win the East, but to make it to the SEC championship game and play against my LSU Tigers in a repeat game of last year's SEC championship game. Just this time, different result. Tigers coming out on top. I still have hope. Why? Because we have the Heisman Trophy winner sitting in Baton Rouge.
Hey, Go ahead and sit down,
ma'am. Okay, the Georgia Bulldogs are going down. All right, so moving on to the number 2 team, the Michigan Wolverines, man.
They'll be in the playoffs.
Contender, pretender. They'll be in the playoffs?
They're a contender. I just don't see nobody. I don't see nobody in the Big Ten to stop them from making it to the playoffs.
I agree. So that lets us both know that they're going to take care of Ohio State the last game of the season and win the Big Ten championship against whoever comes out of the Big Ten West. Okay, so that takes care of Ohio State. They're not going to make it. Florida State, contender, pretender.
Contender. I don't see nobody that can beat them in the ACC.
Exactly. Why? Because their number one opposition were the North Carolina Tar Heels, who got beat by the Virginia Cavaliers this weekend. Virginia hasn't won a game in over a year since that tragedy that happened to them. So Carolina really fell flat on their face. Their Heisman hopeful took a big hit this weekend as well. So we got Carolina being a pretender. We got FSU being a contender. How about those Washington Huskies?
I think, honestly, I think Oregon, if Oregon and Washington meet each other again, I think Oregon might beat Washington this time, man, honestly. So I don't think Washington going to be in the topic of discussion at the end of the season.
So a one-loss Washington team and a one-loss Oregon team who cancel each other out because they beat each other, you will give the nod to the Oregon Ducks by the selection.
Because I don't see 2 teams from the Pac-12 going into the playoffs.
Okay. So I will still go the opposite direction and say that the Washington Huskies would be able to pull another one out against Oregon in the same type of close game, and which would kick Oregon out as a 2-loss team. What about those Oklahoma Booner Sooners? And let's team them up. Obviously, they're going to play against those Texas Longhorns in the Big 12 championship game. Oklahoma may still be undefeated. Texas may still be a one-loss team. All right, so you have a 11-1 Texas team going up against a 12-0 Oklahoma team. Which one comes out of the Big 12?
Oklahoma, man. I think Quinn Ewers is done for the year. I know he's out for at least the next 3 to 4 weeks, if not further. But I just don't see Texas beating Oklahoma, man. Although Oklahoma almost took an L this week. Texas struggled against Houston, bro, this weekend. Come on now.
Yeah, I think Texas is somewhat on the decline, and it's unfortunate that it's happening at the worst time of the season for them. But I think they may take an L before even getting to the Big 12 championship game. And we canceled out all of the other teams that have a shot. The last two, or the team that reside in Baton Rouge and the team that resides in Tuscaloosa, and that will be decided the first Saturday in November, right? And I know Miles asked the question a couple of weeks ago, or it might have been Fred, or it might have been Karen. I forget who it was, but someone asked, could a 2-loss team make it to the college football playoffs this year, right? Say, for instance, LSU beats Alabama, but then loses to Texas A&M, right? And Alabama walks into the SEC championship game against Georgia and beats Georgia. We know an SEC champion is going to the playoffs. Could that be a 2-loss SEC champion going to the playoffs and the chaos that will cause? Because I don't care how much of a down year the SEC has, ain't nobody going to keep us out the playoffs.
Facts.
That kind of answers your question, Miles, or whoever that was, right?
Yeah.
Because the SEC has such a historical, credible
dominance
cachet that we come to the table with, that we kind of built and own. It's kind of like the SEC Invitational, and we just call it the National Championship playoffs. But that will be the only scenario that I see a 2-loss team coming out of any conference to go to the playoffs this year.
They got to win their only way I can see a 2-loss team even being thought about. They got to win their conference, not just in the SEC, any one of the conferences. They got to win the conference. Then they'll have an argument. Other than that, no, I don't see it. To include Alabama.
Yes, sir. And we've already come up to the top of the hour. You got any parting comments for the audience tonight?
As always, man, I think this was probably the largest amount of viewers and we had since we've been doing the show. So I really truly thank everybody for jumping on. I thank everybody for their comments. We truly do really appreciate y'all. Keep on spreading the word about the RoundTable Podcast. As you can see, man, we have fun. We joke, we laugh, and we talk football. And we ain't here to try to sugarcoat nothing. But I just want to say thank y'all again. I won't be here. That's right. I got to make a public service announcement. I won't be here Friday because I will actually be doing the speaking engagement for Miles. Miles took me off the show for Friday. But my heart and soul will be here with everybody. But I know you and whoever you select to come on the show with you on Friday are going to do an outstanding job.
Well, I thank you. And heartfelt safe travels to you on your engagement this weekend. I know that you're going to represent, as you always do, and not only represent the profession in such a positive light, but to share inspiring words with your audience on that particular night. So best wishes on that. I echo the comments and the sentiments that you've shared with the viewing audience tonight. Thank you for joining us on another fire episode, as we said it was going to be. As always, we enjoy the commentary and the feedback that you provide to us in real time, the insight, the education that you provide in your thoughts and the facts that you share, except for Troy. And we look forward to engaging with you every time that we come on here. Friday night show is still going to be banging. We don't know who that guest co-host is going to be. It could be one of you that's sitting in the comments tonight. You just never know. I could just put a camera in your house and drag you in. But we look forward to you joining us on Friday. Y'all have a safe week. Y'all take care of each other. Y'all do something nice for someone because it is a crazy world out there. And we shall see you on Friday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Y'all be breezy.
Deuces. Bye.